One of the things that this exhibition begins to do is really talk about the queer body in relationship to a queer resistance. I started making photographs of my friends in the early 90s, and it was really because of AIDS and watching so many of my friends begin to pass away that I realized that I wanted to use Hans Holbein, who was the painter of the royal court, to use that kind of model of classical portraiture to begin to talk about my life and my own friends' lives. So by using a super kind of formal genre of master painting within photography and portraiture, could I have the audience be held in a different way, in a more human way, where so much of queer bodies were always about body parts. It was about the idea of the kiss or the nipple piercing or the tattoo. And I wanted it not to be about the body parts, but the relationship of the body as a site of architecture for queer identity. So this is where it all started for me, Hans Holbein. So the fact that JD is hanging next to a Holbein is an amazing dream come true. This exhibition that Masp has decided to do is probably one of the more radical exhibitions of the institution, because never before have they allowed the Lina Bobardi plinths to come down. This is the first time that they've ever been in this space, because it's always the space up above the museum. They've never allowed a contemporary artist to have this kind of conversation before. So I was very, very nervous, because would my work hold up with the importance of this collection, with what this collection means for Brazil, what it means in the context of all of art history, how we perceive old master paintings and why they're old masters, and how could a contemporary photographer actually be able to have this conversation and have it work. So when I entered the museum and I walked through, when I saw it installed when I got here on Monday, I was just filled with emotion. I just started crying, because I don't ever want to have the ego that thinks I deserve to be hung within this context, but the fact that it works and it makes everything question a broader humanity is the importance of the exhibition. Because unless we all reach through history and understand that history is about representation and dialogue, how are we ever going to move forward in a society? When you enter the exhibition, you enter with a self-portrait that I made in around 2004, 2005 or so in Venice, Italy, next to their Rembrandt. Now, you know, it's not saying that this portrait is as good as a Rembrandt. We're not talking about values in that way, but we're talking about conversations of artists and self-representation. So Rembrandt never felt like he painted himself very well. He always struggled with that. And I viewed this self-portrait as a portrait of failure, because I was trying to make a body of work in Venice, Italy that never really worked out. And so there's like this relationship to the idea of the artist representing themselves, the artist admitting to failure in a certain way. And so you have to talk about your failures as part of your passion as well as an artist. Being and having, yeah, see, this is the thing, is everybody just assumed. I remember one time I showed them in a museum and people were like, it was in Santa Barbara, California, and somebody was like, I think I know some of these guys in these images. And I said, it's all lesbians with fake mustaches. And because you can see the webbing and the glue, but the way that they're looking out at you, you automatically feel like the male gaze. And what is that? Like, I think it needs to be questioned. It's a way to talk about how within our community, queer community, there is this performative element of masculinity or femininity, and that we've always embraced the fluidity of that. And they're funny because of their names. The names they picked, like Oh So Bad. I mean, what kind of name is that, Oh So Bad, you know? It's just that there's like the plaque and the idea of people hanging animal heads, you know, in hunting lodges, the absurdity of that. And so to have like my friends cropped like, yeah, there's humor there. The hands do it all. So because I'm so aware of hands when I'm posing people, I'm very controlling in the studio. So just the idea of what these portraits do to one another creates a larger conversation. It's not like Oliver was trying to be of this time, he's of his time, but it's using the composition and the formal composition to hopefully bring people in more to looking. This is two of my favorites. Ingrid with Idexa is so amazing. She's gonna be saved from the sea monster. And she's got a ship on her, an anchor on her. All of a sudden they begin to be in conversation with one another. When you look from here, you're looking at self-portrait nursing with my son, but then that's the photograph I took of my grandson the first day he came from the hospital with his father. So it's me with Oliver and then my grandson with his father. So I love that they're in conversation with each other because I never would have made that picture of Guillermo and Joaquin without making self-portrait nursing. And I love how history does that within my own work. Self-portrait nursing was definitely a conversation with Madonna and Child. Well, and it's a preserved history and the idea of Christianity. And we all know within Christianity that there has been really enormous harm in relationship to homophobia. And so what is it to me being a lesbian, an out lesbian, nursing my child in which we shouldn't have children because we're perverts, right? So the idea of what is named on my body for my own desire and sexuality is something that I've always profoundly played with as a language within the work. Because unless we take language and begin to question it and flip it on itself, then how do we expand our definition? So the fact that you can see the scar of pervert on my chest, you see my older face because I'm 40 years old when I had Oliver, looking down is the antithesis of Madonna and Child, but it's also completely beautiful and perfect and about motherhood too. If you look at this, it's so incredibly lit because my grandson's foot in this hand. And that's the other thing within all of these paintings, the hands and the gestures and the touching. All of us need to touch each other. We need to be held close. We need to be remembered what human touch is. We have to stop living in fear. We have to stop living in hate. We just have to. We're never gonna survive. The world is becoming way too hateful and way too complicated and too divided. So can an exhibition like this all of a sudden wash through you and recenter you? And it's almost like, even though people don't want to accept queers within religion, maybe this is still a religious experience.